I'm Leon, living in New York. I am very lucky to have a happy family. My parents have been together for more than 20 years. My brother, Jason, is 10 years older than me. He also has a small, happy family with his wife and daughter. That day was my parents' silver wedding anniversary. The whole family held a cozy party and took a commemorative photo together. My mother wore an old wedding dress. She was really beautiful at the age of 48. My father was also stylish in a white shirt. Parents said sweet words to each other. They thanked each other for their 25 years of companionship. My brother got his camera ready. My niece, Fiona, enjoys running around. My brother looked at Fiona happily and took a few pictures of her. When the whole family arranged a position to take photos, Fiona suddenly started crying and was not cooperating. Fiona is almost 2 years old this year. She walks quite well but is slow to speak. She cried and then reached towards my mother as if she wanted my mother to hold her. When she sat on my mother's lap, she immediately became happy again. The whole family laughed because of Fiona's cuteness. Everyone looked at the camera and smiled brightly. After taking photos, everyone continued the party and danced together. More than a week after, my brother took the photos to be developed. After dinner, everyone brought out the photos to look at. I was startled when I held the photos in my hand. In the photos my brother took of Fiona, she was chasing a boy. The photo doesn't show his face clearly. Looking at his height, I guess the boy is about 3 years old. I quickly picked up the other photos to look at. In the family photo, that boy appeared again. That boy stood next to my mother, playing with Fiona. So she cried for my mother because she wanted to continue playing with that boy. I was startled again. In all the photos, I was not there. But the strange thing is that my parents did not have any questions or panic reactions when looking at the photos. They smiled and complimented my brother for taking beautiful photos. They didn't even see the other boy like me. Suddenly, my mother was thoughtful and then burst into tears. "I wish there were more Leon and Marcus in the family photo," my mother said with a choked voice. "Leon and Marcus? I'm Leon. I'm here, right? And who is Marcus? Are there any other family members that I don't know about?" The family atmosphere fell silent. No one paid attention to my questions, except for Fiona, who ran to hug me as if to comfort me. I hugged Fiona, but a series of questions appeared in my mind. Looking closely at the family photo, that boy's face is very familiar. Another evening, I was in the bedroom with Fiona, who is very attached to me. We will play together for a while before the baby falls asleep. I stayed and watched Fiona for a while before returning to my room. But that day when I walked out the door, Fiona suddenly woke up. The little girl whined and asked me to stay. I quickly hugged Fiona to comfort her, and in just a moment she smiled. Fiona looked at me intently and she said, "Friend." When my sister-in-law heard Fiona crying, she also ran over worriedly. As soon as she entered, she witnessed Fiona's first words. My sister-in-law happily picked up the baby and ran to the room to show it to my brother. The happy laughter of the small family also made me laugh unconsciously. One beautiful morning, my parents wore black clothes and looked sad. My parents told me and my brother's family that they wanted to take us to visit some people. I was quite curious but didn't ask much, but did what my parents said. My family stopped the car in front of the gate of a large cemetery. I went last, following the whole family into the cemetery. My mother sadly knelt and cried at a grave. My father and brother tried to comfort her. Coming closer to look at the tombstone, I was shocked to see that the names printed on the tombstone were Marcus and Leon. Looking at the two small photos on the stele, I was startled to recognize the boy in the family photo. It turned out that boy's name was Marcus. The other photo is me, Leon. That boy and I only have different eye colors. Everything before my eyes gradually blurred. Echoing in my ears were the sounds of police cars and ambulances, followed by the sound of crying, the sound of my parents calling out Leon and Marcus's names in pain and helplessness. Before my eyes appeared the scene of the bodies of two twin boys covered in blood and open wounds. The two boys lay on top of each other in a pool of blood. A man holding a sharp knife stood looking at the bodies of two boys with wide eyes full of red veins. The tight pain throughout my body pulled me back to the present. My body was covered in scars. They began to bleed and hurt. My mother was still kneeling and crying next to the grave. Fiona walked up, pointed to the picture of me and Marcus on the grave and said, "You." I'm Egan, 45 years old. I'm the chief of police at the Westchester Police Department, Pennsylvania, USA. I love my job and have many certificates and medals for my contributions in the profession. At the end of 2023, my teammates and I successfully solved the case of a drug production and trafficking ring in the city. The leader of that ring is Dominic. He is like a ferocious and cunning stray dog. To successfully solve that case, I lost my little finger while confronting Dominic. He was sentenced to life in prison and is being held at Chester Prison. Nothing would happen until earlier this year. Dominic escaped from prison. Dominic's arrest warrant was immediately issued throughout Chester County and other counties in Pennsylvania and neighboring states. After many days of searching and investigating, Dominic was still missing. At around 10 o'clock last night, the police department received a call from a resident reporting that Dominic was seen hiding at a nearby abandoned hospital. My teammates and I immediately set out. According to the displayed location, that abandoned hospital is Pennhurst, located in Spring City. The hospital is used to treat people with mental illness and disabilities. It has been closed since 1987. Police cars arrived at the hospital at nearly 11 a.m. We sealed off the entire area outside the hospital. After that, I and 3 other policemen will be responsible for searching for Dominic inside. When we entered the hospital lobby, we looked around and then split up in different directions to look for Dominic. I held the gun and flashlight tightly and gradually entered the treatment area for mental patients. Even though I've been through a lot of cases, but searching for a dangerous criminal in an abandoned hospital scene at midnight still keeps me on edge. I cautiously observed my surroundings, mentally ready because Dominic could attack at any time. Shining my flashlight into every corner, the cold feeling increased as I went deeper into the hospital. I was about to leave when I looked closely at a hospital room and saw nothing. Suddenly, a breeze blew past my ears, as if someone had run past me. I immediately turned around, one hand holding the gun, the other shining a flashlight, but there was no one. Slowly, I turned around and continued walking, but I was always alert to both sides and behind me. When I got to a larger hospital room, I saw some personal belongings, clothes, and leftover food boxes. Everything has just been used, as the food still shows no signs of spoilage. I confirmed over the radio with all my teammates inside and outside the hospital. There are people living in this abandoned hospital. It is highly likely that it is Dominic. Quickly, search and arrest. As I finished speaking, crazy laughter rang out outside the hospital hallway. The laughter was very loud and echoed in the dark and cold space. I quickly ran out into the hallway, holding my gun firmly and ready to pull the trigger at any moment. But strangely, there was no one there. Maybe he can turn invisible or evaporate, I thought to myself. The horror happened again. Behind me, in front of my eyes, on both sides of me, There appeared a lot of uncontrolled laughter, screams, fast-running footsteps, and the sound of wheels. It was like someone was pushing stretchers through the hallways. I was motionless for a moment, trying to reshape everything. I've heard many rumors about the horror of this hospital. What I could do at that moment was stay calm and continue looking for Dominic. As soon as I turned around, I shined my flashlight into a room on the right and was about to enter. Standing close in front of me was a strange woman. Eyes wide open, mouth wide open, neck twisted to one side. I was startled and screamed loudly, immediately stepped back and dropped the flashlight. It took a few seconds for me to calm down, pick up the flashlight and look into the room. That girl has disappeared. Suddenly, a man's panicked scream rang out loudly. "Don't come near me, bitch! I'll kill you!" The screams were menacing but full of fear. I'm sure it's Dominic's voice. I ran quickly into the hallway to locate the scream and began searching. Dominic's screams became clearer and closer each time, but there began to be weakness and despair. I ran into room 1313. The first thing I felt was the smell of blood. Looking around with the flashlight, I was startled to see Dominic's body on an old hospital bed with 2 broken legs. His body was still hot, his hand clutching a sharp knife stabbed deep into his chest. Blood continued to flow from the wound. Next to the hospital bed, there are still some medical equipment from ancient times. On the bed is a wristband with the words Lanny written on it. Could this be the name of the patient in this room? Could this be the girl I saw earlier? 3 of my teammates also ran over and were shocked to witness the scene before their eyes. Dominic's body was examined and determined to have died by suicide. There were no signs of any attack, so the case is over. But my 3 teammates and I still don't believe that Dominic committed suicide. Could it be that Dominic did something to make the soul of a woman named Lanny angry?
I'm Daria, 21 years old, living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My family is middle class and I have 4 siblings. After graduating from high school, I went to work to help my parents and my siblings. I chose babysitting because it didn't require any degree. After several years of working in my hometown, I came to New York. I wanted to increase my income by working for rich families. I went to Manhattan, New York, where the world's largest concentration of billionaires and millionaires is located. I was hired to babysit for a family who lived in a house that looked like a castle in a fairy tale. I am responsible for taking care of 3 children, Baron, 10 years old, Savia, 8 years old, and Aiden, 6 years old. The 3 children were perfect. They are very polite and obedient. Baron, Savia, and Aiden are not the same. Each child will resemble their father in some way. As far as I know, the boss is a businessman, 44 years old. He will be home on odd days of the week. I also never saw his wife. Surely such rich families will have complicated stories like those in the movies. Nothing would come of it until the last few weeks. I received a call to my family's landline. The children are about to be in trouble. Save them quickly. A man's voice, very deep and a bit frightened. I asked who he was, but the other end of the line kept repeating the same sentence. The children are about to be in trouble. Save them quickly. I felt uncomfortable and hung up. I think it's a prankster from someone having a mental problem. The next day, still in the same time frame, I received another call. The girl is in danger. Save her quickly. I was startled to realize that this voice was the man from yesterday. Who are you? What is your relationship with this family? I quickly asked him, but he repeated what he had just said and hung up. I fell into confusion. What is up? The boss's powerful and slightly annoyed voice rang out right behind me. He must have heard something while I was talking on the phone. I hastily told him about the 2 calls from the man. He immediately got angry and asked the workers in the house to unplug all phone lines. I suggested calling the police, but he immediately got angry and shouted loudly. He asked me to take good care of the children and not to do anything else without permission. Everything went normal until 5 days later. I went up to Savia's room at 6 o'clock to call her down for dinner. Knocking on the door for a long time, Savia didn't want to open the door. I opened the door and went in. I looked around the room and couldn't find her. The iPad was playing the movie Xavier was watching. I called out, but she didn't answer. Running downstairs in a panic, I quickly told the housekeeper to quickly call the boss. Xavier was missing. But the strange thing was that everyone present in the dining room was indifferent to what I said. They continued to eat their meal very calmly. Even Baron and Aiden did not react when they heard their sister was missing. I froze looking at these people. Don't they have any emotions? I decided to call the boss myself, but he didn't answer the phone. I really wanted to call the police, but remembered his angry reaction the day before. I had to put the phone away. I'll wait until the evening when he comes home. Today is also Thursday. As soon as I heard the sound of his car, I quickly ran to tell the boss about Xavier's disappearance. But his reaction once again shocked me. She misbehaved. She will be punished and come back in a few days. I'll say it again, just mind your own business. His cold and bloodshot eyes looked straight at me. It made my body stiffen. His eyes gradually turned back to brown. I panicked, tried to hold my breath, bowed my head, and ran quickly back into my room. I'm scared, but I'm making a lot of money working here, so I choose to stay quiet and try to do my job well. 3 days later, Baron continued to disappear. The boy disappeared, leaving the room cluttered with many things. I was extremely panicked when incomprehensible things continued to happen, but the attitude of the people living in this house really makes me feel creepy. A housekeeper, she came in at the same time as me, revealed to me the reason why Baron disappeared. The boy was also taken to be punished because he refused to take medicine. Medicine? Is Baron sick? I didn't know about this when I joined the job. A series of questions appeared in my mind. It's been almost 2 weeks. Baron and Xavier still haven't come back. One day, I went down to the warehouse to find Baron his favorite ball. I was a bit startled when I saw the desk phone stored in here. I stood looking at the phones for a while and decided to go over and plug in the red phone I'd received 2 calls before. As soon as I plugged in the phone, it immediately rang loudly, causing me to panic and answer the call. I don't want anyone to know what I'm doing. My heart was beating very hard. I tried to breathe evenly. On the other end of the line was that man's voice. "Quickly, get out of there. You will be the next victim." I didn't answer. I tried to calmly continue to listen. "You'll be forced to drink deadly drugs. You will lose all consciousness and emotions. You'll become a living doll. He will sell you as a sex toy." My eyes widened as wide as possible. Tears welled up. I covered my mouth tightly, trying not to sob out loud. He was so cruel that he used his own children to make money. Maybe his wife was sold in that way. Not just 1, but 3 wives, with 3 children. All I could think about right now was running away. I have to escape this horrible place. Just as I turned around to run out, at the warehouse's entrance, a tall black shadow was staring at me with cold, bloodshot eyes.
I'm Alice, 26 years old, working as a switchboard operator for a hospital in Miami, Florida. My work is divided into 2 shifts, day shift and night shift. I often sign up to work the night shift because the night shift will have a higher pay. The work is not too difficult, but requires me to apply a lot of knowledge and skills at the same time. I will receive and handle calls to the hospital, provide information about services, support patients and customers, answer questions, and direct them to relevant departments. One evening, I was on duty. It was about 11 p.m. I received a call. "Hello? How may I help you?" I called to ask for guidance on how to help a girl be happy again. It was the voice of a man. I guess he was in his 40s. I was quite surprised by this case, but realized this was not an emergency. Maybe this man is quite meticulous in taking care of his loved ones. I asked him gently. "I am very willing, sir. May I ask what your name is?"
"Logan."
"Yes, Mr. Logan. I wonder if the person you are interested in is your wife or daughter?"
"She's not my wife, nor my daughter. We just met 2 hours ago. I already forgot her name."
His answer surprised me again, and I was silent for about 3 seconds. I asked him how she was doing. The man was silent for a moment, then spoke in a laughing voice.
"She seemed very scared. She was crying. She seemed to be shaking."
"Can I talk to her, sir?" The man immediately refused when he heard my suggestion. He said he wanted to take care of the girl himself. I patiently continued the conversation with a bad feeling about this man. I hastily asked for the man's current address. He laughed.
Let me think for a moment. There are so many people here. So many, they are all lying quietly at my feet.
I remained silent at Logan's confusing answer. He suddenly laughed, said he was just joking, and read the address to me. Working very quickly on the computer, I realized it was an area near the cemetery, about 20 kilometers from the hospital. Suddenly, a girl's moans rang out from the other end of the line. I listened attentively. The moans seemed to come out while being gagged. "Is something wrong, sir?"
Oh no, my girl is a bit resistant. I don't like this at all.
I heard a punch or something. I'm sure it was the sound of force being applied to the human body. I was very confused with all the inferences. That man spoke up.
She's better now, and she's looking at me with angry eyes.
I try to reassure myself and do my job properly. "Mr. Logan, please let me speak to..." Before I could finish my sentence, a painful sound rang out very clearly. Next was some sticky sound. My heart beat fast. I felt scared and creepy with my own speculations. On the other end of the line, a creepy laugh rang out.
She didn't look at me anymore, nor did she protest. She was sleeping on the floor.
I didn't answer anymore. My hands worked quickly on the computer. I quickly dispatched the ambulance and police car to the location the man named Logan had provided. After nearly 20 minutes, police cars and ambulances arrived at the location I identified. It is the guard building of a local cemetery. After calling loudly and no one responded, the police immediately rushed in. The scene inside the room made all the police and medical staff present there freeze. On the floor is the intact body of the female guard. All of her toes and fingers were severed. Blood splattered all over the walls, floors, tables, and chairs. She lost both eyes. The mouth was sewn tightly shut. The clothes have many rough cuts. All cameras in the cemetery were stolen. 2 surveillance computer screens were also smashed. The police also could not collect any further evidence to investigate the man named Logan. The following days I was filled with regret. I should have called the police sooner when I noticed something unusual. I heard the entire process of that pervert murdering the female security guard without being able to save her. Police are still actively looking for information about Logan. I'm also not sure if the name he called himself is accurate or not. About a week later, I'm also on the night shift. On duty that day, there were many accidents and emergencies. My mind was extremely stressed. I had just rested a bit. At around 12 o'clock, the phone rang again. I regained my composure and answered the phone with a professional attitude. The other end of the line was silent for a moment, then spoke. "Do you remember me?" I immediately fell into panic, because I immediately recognized that voice as Logan's. Before I could react, he continued to haunt me. He accurately described my physical characteristics and the clothes I was wearing. Even scarier was the mole on the back of my neck, which he could also see. I stood up in fear and looked around the office. Logan's loud laughter rang out from the phone. The perverted and disgusting voice made my limbs weak. I'm Brenna, 27 years old, living in the beautiful city of Toledo, Ohio. I am confident that I have an eye-catching appearance with long black hair and a perfect figure. Even though I get a lot of attention, I haven't had a happy relationship yet. My best friend, Anna, introduced me to the blind date. That was Anna's senior at university. I was also quite comfortable with this, so I agreed. If I can't become a couple, maybe I can have another friend. The blind date took place on Friday night. He invited me to the luxurious restaurant, the Beirut. When I arrived, an extremely handsome guy sitting near the window waved at me. The closer I got, the faster my heart beat. He's actually much more handsome than in the photo. He introduced himself as Vincent, 29 years old. We started eating and chatting.
Vincent is truly attractive. not only because of his appearance, but also because of his charming way of speaking and solid career.
Vincent said he had a private hospital specializing in the beauty industry. I also feel that Vincent likes me quite a bit. The blind date went very happily. Vincent took me home at 11 o'clock. We exchanged contacts and set up another date. When I got back to my room, I happily picked up my phone and texted Anna about the blind date. But Anna didn't answer. I guess she was asleep. Vincent and I's next few dates were great. I accepted to be his girlfriend after the 5th date. Vincent kept complimenting my hair and hands. He said they were beautiful and made an impression from the first time he saw me. Every appointment, I texted Anna the details, but she didn't reply. I'm not worried or strange, because her job often requires her to travel and disconnect for a few days. I plan to meet Anna to thank her when she returns. One evening, after Vincent and I had finished eating, he gave me a very large and beautiful bouquet of roses. Vincent wanted to invite me to his house and said he'd prepared a surprise gift for me. I agreed without thinking too much. Vincent's house is very large and modern. He led me to a room on the 2nd floor. Vincent told me to wait here for a moment. He would come back with a surprise prepared. I hugged a bouquet of roses, feeling so lucky and happy to have found a very good boyfriend. I looked around and saw that the room was quite simple, with a lovely table and chairs, a wooden cabinet in the left corner. It would be a surprise later. I smelled an antibiotic-like smell, but with the added unpleasantness of an animal carcass. I didn't pay too much attention because those two smells were only fleeting. A few minutes later, I wanted to use the restroom. Going around the observation room, I saw the toilet in the right corner. Going inside, I saw yellow hair on the floor, sink, and bathtub. There weren't many of them, but they were still prominent enough for me to see. The hair is long. I'm sure this is a woman's hair. Maybe, in this house, there are relatives living with him. I plan to ask Vincent after he returns. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting my makeup. At the bottom of the mirror, there was a dim red light. I raised my hand to see what it was. Accidentally, I pulled up the mirror. Behind were many medical instruments. I was quite surprised, but remembering Vincent's job as a doctor, I also found the answer. I no longer wonder about the existence, but rather wonder about their location. I closed the mirror and went outside to wait for Vincent. After a while, Vincent still didn't come back. I started to lose patience. I planned to go out and look for him. The house was very large and had many rooms. I walked down the hallway and called Vincent. He didn't answer. I started to feel strange and scared. This case is very similar to the movies I've seen. I will play the main character and be in danger. While thinking about that, Vincent suddenly called out loudly, startling me. He was worried when he didn't see me in the room. Vincent gently raised his hand to his cheek and looked at me. A strange feeling appeared. I slowly closed my eyes. I will give you long black hair like before, a lovely and soft hand. I will collect beautiful body parts that resemble you. You will be perfected soon, Natalie. I woke up dreamily, realizing I was lying in bed, the light from the lamp shining straight into my face, making me dizzy. I just heard Vincent's voice. He mentioned something about Natalie. I heard loud, scary laughter and footsteps getting further and further away. He must have gone out. I used all my strength to sit up, trying to stay awake and observe my surroundings. I was in the room at the beginning, surrounded by a lot more medical equipment. Looking to the left, I was startled and covered my mouth with my hand to keep from screaming. It was a woman, but it wasn't right because she didn't have hands, hair, or ears. Or it's a mannequin, but the stitches to attach to the body parts are very clear. I panicked and sat close to the corner of the bed. Looking at my arms, there are many marks. My scalp was also completely numb. I trembled and got out of bed, trying to run away from here as quickly as possible. My head couldn't deduce anything about Vincent anymore. I just want to escape quickly, get out of this evil house and find help. While scared and confused, I accidentally bumped into the cabinet near the door. The closet door opened and two women fell to the floor from inside. Each of them is missing some part of their body. The fear was so extreme that I couldn't control my body anymore. I stood there looking at the two women and realized one of them is my best friend Anna. Her beautiful blue eyes were sewn shut. The stitches are infected and smell terrible. Anna was still breathing. She was still alive. I helped her up when suddenly I heard footsteps coming closer and closer from outside.